Hey everybody, it's Greg here, and welcome to another episode. We're going to talk today about 5 books you can get right here, right now, that can have a huge impact on your life, your business, and your entrepreneurial journey today. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, I became an entrepreneur 22 years ago. I was 18 years old, and my parents were telling me to go to college, which is okay, and do that whole thing. And, I went to college, and it just didn't work out the way I thought it would. And I certainly don't, I really certainly don't recommend college to really anybody today, because of self-education. Formal education can make you a living, which is fine, and a self-education can make you a fortune, which is super fine. My first mentor, Jim Rohn, taught me that 22 years ago when I was 18. So one of the most important things, though, is always sharpening your skill, always learning, always going through that personal development. So there are 5 books I'm going to get into here really quickly that can change your outcome today, for today, this week, this month, and everything. So the first book I'm going to talk about is a book that really changed my life when I was 18. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book was written, it is written by Robert Kiyosaki. And here's what happened in that book. Brief description. Robert had 2 dads, a rich dad and a poor dad. His poor dad was his biological dad, who did the things the way he was supposed to do, which was go to school, get good grades, get a good job, do that whole thing. And it didn't really work. He ended up doing all that stuff. And then his rich dad would teach him different philosophies, different ways of investing, real estate, personal development, these different things. And that completely changed the outcome of his life. So that is book number 1. I highly recommend that. Here's the story that goes along with that. So I hated reading books as a kid, always because it was forced on by school and stuff like that. I guess you could say we were rebellious. And I still remember in high school, we used to rent the movies when we'd have these book reports due. I still remember there was 2 movies that I rented, Charlotte's Web and The Lord of the Flies. And we used to literally take my bike, because I don't want my parents to know, and I'd go to the video store. Yes, back then we had to do that and get these cassettes. I'd have to rent it with my little laminated VHS. What was it, like a Video Stop or something? That was the place it was called. It was like $3 or something. I'd rent the movie, come home and watch it and figure it out, and then make a book report on it, because I just didn't want to read books. I was like, it's too boring. You always get that stigma of the way to do things and stuff like that. Little did I know that I had to change that right away. So I did that, became an entrepreneur. My first mentor, a guy named Jim Rohn. Jim used to say, how many books have you read in the last year? And I would think to my head, like, none. And he used to say, that's not a good number. You better become a good reader of books if you want to be anything in life. It's not what you get, it's who you become. And who you become determines what you get. It's what you get on the inside. From time to time in your life, your income and success can take a lucky jump, but it very rarely will pass your personal development, your level of personal development and who you are. So always be learning. So at that point, I was like, I better become a reader of books. So I started reading 10 pages of a book every night, because my mentor, someone I always, look, at this point in my life, 22 years later, I still buy courses. I still attend seminars. I still buy books. I'm always learning. So at that point, I had read that if you read 10 pages of a good book every single night, you're 98% ahead of the world's population. Okay, 98%. And all it takes is a little bit. Okay, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So always be learning multiple skills. So when you read that book, and then drop it out of college, I was literally in a college class, and I was like, why am I sitting here in a business class learning from a professor that's never owned a business? Didn't make sense. Anyway, that was book number 1. I highly suggest you get that book. Book number 2, that book is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The older copies of that book used to say, this book might just be worth $1 million to you. And I will tell you, there are things in that book that can change your mindset, your thinking, everything for you. Go to most entrepreneurs and they will refer that book to you. Think and Grow Rich. I would 100% get that book. One of my mentors, I said to him, I said, I want to become this successful by this date. And he said, you think you can? And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, if you think you can, you can. And that is from that book. So I highly suggest you get the book Think and Grow Rich. It's by Napoleon Hill. It's a classic, can change your life very, very quickly. The third book I suggest is a book called Elon Musk by Ashley Vance. The reason I like that book, because it talks about the struggles that he went through even after he got $100 million from PayPal. The struggles, like he literally took all that money and he reinvested that $100 million and was struggling to pay rent. But what he had to endure to get where he is today. And, it's kind of like this. Us entrepreneurs, we have a very high threshold, right, of things we can go through that don't really bother us, right? We can go through a lot of things. So this book taught me the thresholds I have. Look, if this guy went through that, then I certainly can get through this challenge. Remember, the highest paid people in the world are problem solvers. And if you can get through that, it can change everything for you. So what I will tell you is that book is really, really incredible. It changed a lot of things for me, and it can definitely help you. 4, I'd suggest Dale Carnegie's other classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That is one of the most inspirational books you can ever read. It's going to teach you how to influence people, get people to do what you want them to do, right? The definition of a leader is getting somebody to do something they wouldn't have ordinarily done if you hadn't been there. I suggest that book all day long. The simple thing I got from that book is call people by the sound of their music, which is their name. Think about it. Just say your name right now. How does that feel? There you go. So that book, I would suggest that right here, right now. Go ahead, get inspired, and grab that immediately. And the last book I suggest is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Is because the things you think about, you will become. And it also mentions that in the Bible. Let me just throw that book in there too. Most of the top lists of business books in the world, they'll also mention that too. I thought I'd just throw that in there. The New Testament, a lot of this stuff of personal development, it actually does come from there. But As a Man Thinketh, that book is unbelievable. The things you think about is what you become, and how it actually affects the way you think, the habits you do, and things like that. So I would tell you this. Get those books. They will change everything for you. And here's what I will tell you. If you want to get an audiobook, get it an audiobook, because you can, collapse time frames. You can make it a lot smaller and go through them a lot quicker. Instead of it taking a month for you to read it or 2 weeks, you can finish an audiobook in a day and collapse time frames. Would I also read? I would also read as well. So I would get those books, make a decision right here, right now. And here's what happens. You become more skilled. You gain knowledge. Things happen. And here's what I will tell you. Everybody's got knowledge. Everybody's got a skill. Everyone has a passion, expertise, a hobby. If you want to learn how to take that knowledge and turn that into income and monetize it, click one of the links below. What we do here is that we also help people take their knowledge, skills, expertise, a hobby, a passion, and we show you how to turn it into a learning program or a course and start generating income. And people in today's age are looking for the knowledge that's in your head. So we essentially teach you how to sell your knowledge. So look, click the link, one of the links in the description, book a call with us. We'd love to show you how to do that. But go ahead, get those books, start with it. Start with a little bit. Remember, it's doing little things over and over again, which seem to make no difference in the act of doing it. The compound effect of reading 10 pages of a book a day puts you X amount of books ahead of every single person out there. And, take a little bit of the next Netflix time off, read a little bit, improve your mind. And remember, one of my mentors told me, why do we watch other people living their dreams, on TV and things like that, when we could be building our own? With that, I appreciate you. We will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.